In this video tutorial, I'm going to share with you some of the tools and equipment that you will need to start needle felting. You could make all sorts of projects with needle felting techniques. They could be big or small, simple, like this little pumpkin, or much more complex and detailed, like this little decorative owl. Either way, no matter what kind of project you're creating, you are going to need some basic tools to get started. First of all, you are going to need some felting needles. If you look closely at these needles, you'll see that they are triangular in shape and they have barbs running along them. They are quite sharp, and you will want to use caution when you're using them so you don't stab yourself. The felting needles are actually interlocking the different fibers of the wool and creating kind of a matted, or what we call felted, material. So these little barbs on these triangular needles are really essential for actually creating and converting the raw wool or roving into felt. It is very helpful to have some of these just individual needles. They do have small handles. You can wrap tape around them to create a larger kind of handle if you want as well, for more control and stability. The needles do come in different weights or thicknesses. This needle that I have here is a heavy needle, and you can see it is a little bit thicker. This would be great for some of the preliminary steps involved in kind of shaping and forming, and also joining up different wool pieces. And then this is a fine needle. It is much smaller and more delicate. You do have to be careful with the fine needles, and the heavy ones for that matter. It is possible to break needles if you're not careful. The fine needles are really useful for doing small detail work, like adding facial features to little animals or any small embellishments. So it is handy to have an assortment of different types of needles. We also will be using a felting pen, and this is just a little device that allows you to hold multiple needles just to speed up some of the larger areas of your felting. You can also use this little kind of like claw tool to help you hold some of the roving in place if you are concerned that you might stab your fingers while you're holding some of those smaller detailed areas. This tool can also be used to comb or card the wool, and the little brush on the back can be used to clean your felting mat if you get fibers locked in there. Speaking of the felting mat, you will need something to protect your work surface. It can be a small piece of foam or this like kind of more rigid insulation material, but you never want to felt on a hard surface because you risk damaging and breaking your needles. So you do need something soft and squishy to felt into, just to avoid damaging your needles. Some felting kits will also come with these little like finger guards made of leather. These can be handy, especially as you're starting out and getting a little bit more comfortable, just to protect your fingers from any errant needles. And then the most important tool or piece of equipment that you will need when you're felting is actually the raw wool. So this is called wool roving. It is just raw wool that has been sheared off of a sheep. It is kind of carded or combed, so all the fibers are going in the same direction. And then it has been cleaned and dyed. Roving comes in a wide variety of colors and textures to suit any kind of project that you may want to create. It is a unique property of wool that you can felt with it. If you look very closely at the wool fibers, you'll notice that they're not smooth. There's a lot of texture in them, and that kind of texture is what allows it to be felted. We are going to be doing some needle felting for this project, and we will also experiment with a different kind of felting technique, which is wet felting. What happens with both of these techniques is that you are basically interlocking all of these loose fibers together to form a piece of material that we refer to as felt. So we are converting this really soft, pillowy, loose wool into a kind of more firm and rigid material known as felt.